Life awaits all the way from Sales, Mammoth, and Igor. Give it up for Life Awaits. Let's get started tonight.
Can we start? All right, we're going to start.
Let's go. All right, let's give it up one more time for Life Awaits. We're going to hear a testimony from J.J. Jones.
Test. Good? How are we doing tonight? Guys having fun so far? All right, praise God. Well, I'm J.J. Jones, Jedediah Jones, I go by J.J. And I've been saved now for a little over a year and a half. Growing up, I was raised in church. I was raised in a Christian church and the Church of God. And I was a church kid. I went all the way up until I think about my sophomore year. And then I fell into the world. I started drinking in high school, and I pretty much took that route all the way until I got saved. Then I started acting. I started doing acting and film and stuff, and up until I got saved, I started getting a lot of Christian films. I started getting offered Christian work, and I was like, that's funny. Like, yeah, I used to go to church, and I used to really have a relationship with God, so it's funny that this would kind of come about, and it actually helped soften and open my heart to what was about to come, which the Lord was working through me. Started coming here and raised my hand and gave my life to God, and then He's slowly been working through my life to show me that through acting and through everything that I was choosing to do for the world, that's really what He had planned to use through me. So now we're started our ministry with the Route 66 Drama Squad. And now we're doing our own film work and our own skits. You'll see one of them here tonight. But praise God, it's funny how he just works His way. He knows what He's doing. And sometimes we have to just sit back and let Him take the wheel. But praise God, thank you guys so much.
All right, you guys ready for some more music tonight?
All right, we're back. Hold on.
All right, let's give it up for Life Awaits. drama squad gets ready, we're going to hear another testimony from April. Vanessa Parsons.
Most of you guys know me here. I'm Vanessa Parsons. I've been saved this past year. This celebrated 14 years. I grew up in church since the age of 6, so I knew about God, I knew about Jesus, I knew who He was, I knew what He could do. But, you know, when you're a church kid, you know, you think you know everything. And so when I got to high school, that's when my life went downhill. You know, I started dating, I started doing drugs, I started, I don't know. You guys know. So I did a lot of bad things that I shouldn't have done, that a good church kid shouldn't have done. And so, you know, at the age of 18, they told me that I died twice and stopped breathing twice from alcohol poisoning. But that never stopped me, you know, God saved me, but it never stopped me, you know, I kept going back and forth until the age of like 22 years old, 21 years old, I tried to commit suicide because somebody disrespected me and I knew where I was going to go. I didn't care if I went to hell, a long time, I was always waiting for a relationship. But God had other plans, you know, still I didn't change, but, you know, God still had His hand on me because of my mother was praying for me. And so, you know, fast forward, you know, I got saved, I got baptized again in this church, and then I found out I was pregnant with my first child. And God, always told people God had a sense of humor because I would have left. As soon as I got baptized, like 2 months later, I would have left, and I would never got to marry my husband here in this church. You know, we got married, you know, and found out our second child, you know, being born here, you know, and we got sent out from this church, and I never thought I would become a pastor's wife. You know, all those times I was, you know, sinning, messing around, you know, doing stupid stuff in my sin. I never thought I was the least of my sisters to be a pastor's wife. But here I am today, 14 years saved, 11 years married, and I never thought I would be married or even have a relationship that lasted this long. And but it's by the grace of God, you know, and that my husband didn't give up on me. You know, he didn't give up on me, even though, you know, we dated different people. He never gave up on me. He still prayed for me, and you know, as everybody knows, we met when I was 14. He was 18 years old. So God had. We met, but I didn't like it. But you know, God had all this plan from the day I saw Him, you know, and I just thank God for everything, you know, even when hell was trying to come against us, when my husband's health and everything, with all that stuff, and it's like the devil was trying to bring us down, but you know, God still prevailed, you know, God still helping us. We have 2 couples from our church here, and that's like amazing in itself. It's like awesome, you know. And you guys can reunite with my cousin who's a drummer, and we haven't seen each other for this little. And you know, God is amazing, God. So if you don't know God here tonight and you don't have a relationship with Him, you know, tonight you're gonna have an opportunity to give your life to